I wanted to bring your attention to the thumbnail of this video, and you'll see there's no little kitty on it because I saw something very scary on the road on my way to the post office. And by the way, I went to the post office. Of course, it's Wednesday, the day that all Americans, or at least most Americans, are celebrating the death of that globalist turd called George H.W. Bush. And I don't know what else to call them except they are globalist turds. You know, they're kind of the floaties left in the toilet that we all need to do a double flush and get them out of humanity's way. Anyway, as I was coming back, I saw one of these Waymo vehicles. I couldn't believe it. They're already rolled out, and I don't think people understand. You know, first they make it all fun. You can get into this thing, and there's no driver, and it'll take you here and there. But when you couple up some of the other technologies we've shown folks in our audios and articles, this is going to be a nightmare.
It truly is, Betsy. It is the living nightmare of what we already see happening in China right now with the social credit system. Here's what's going on, and it's sad. The driverless cars are not just based upon what Google did when Google went on every street in America and recorded it in 360 so that they would have a record of that. It's not just Google Earth. It's not just GPS. It's the fact that whether we know it or not, 5G has already been rolled out and is all over. But for these cars to work appropriately and to work very safely, they need 5G on every single street, everywhere. They need a pervasive 5G continuum to work in so that they can respond so quickly. Well, we have told President Trump that right now what he needs to do is create a 5G moratorium. 5G kills everything. 5G is a eugenics plan to kill humans. Make no mistake about this. Everyone who's in a 5G field, the poor girls, their eggs are basically killed in their ovaries.
And not to mention the guys, when they wear the cell phones in their pockets, all of that electromagnetic frequency. And we've tested it ourselves with our own machinery. You can see that it is harmful. Indeed, the electromagnetic frequencies are greater with the cell phone on than if it's away from your body.
The number one demand for 5G is for driverless cars. Forget driverless cars. We'll go there in a second. Just as Betsy said, yeah, if that car is going to pull up someday, you're going to get in it, you're going to have a social credit score that's low, and it's going to take you straight to the FEMA camp. What don't you understand about this? This is what's happening in China right now, and you pay for it all.
Yeah, first they'll take you to your yoga class or maybe to the airport and you'll think it's really cool. You don't have a driver there. Then the next thing you know, they'll be checking your social credit score to see if you're even worthy of a ride. And then there's the possibility that they get you in there, lock the doors, you can't talk to the driver. It takes you to the re-education camp.
The people who want to provide driverless cars and 5G are the Chinese. And they're basically, they own the market as it is now. They tried to recently, through Qualcomm, merging with Broadcom, take over the 5G contract. Now remember, there are 17,000 satellites being launched by Elon Musk and by Eric Schmidt as we speak to put 5G into space being beamed down from satellites. So the 5G on the Earth in the very, very pervasive antennas that must be literally with an eye shot. Every place that you stand in America, you will be able to look and see a 5G antenna. That's what the plan is. Now, who's going to install that? Well, China has said that they'll install it, but of course then we have to use their technology, and as we know, their technology is always tainted, and anyone who trusts China is a fool. So what is China really trying to do? This is eugenics. This is the Chinese plan to take over America. Kill everybody so that our population goes down, so that they then simply are begged to send their overpopulated, brilliant people to America. The very people, you know, Huawei and FTE and, Huawei and so many of the other technological companies coming out of China will corner the market with 5G. Now, we have 5G happening in every large house in America.
Well, why couldn't these cars just work off of GPS and a petrochemical motor? I mean, why do they need 5G to run these things?
Well, because it has to have response time. Now, the problem is simply response time. Now, the driverless cars are very, very fast, faster than actually humans in controlled circumstances. But as you've seen, there have been many accidents with these. So it is experimental. And what you saw today in Michigan, they're going to have drivers sitting in those seats for a while. And then they're just going to let these driverless cars drive around.
Believe me, they can drive already without the drivers. They're just there to nudge you into the inevitable. You will not be able to drive or move yourself around this country without government approval. Oh, you know who makes them? Chrysler. Oh, you mean Chrysler? The government big bailout for Chrysler, what we call globalist motors moving to China, they'll be making them. And look, folks, don't buy this stuff. Stop buying these phones. Stop buying this technology. I can't believe you go into people's houses and they have these Alexa things. And you go, don't you know that that's connected right into Big Brother? They're clueless.
It is so sad that we are so enamored, hypnotized, and controlled by the concept of advanced technology. Any technology that is advanced is good. Wrong. China has shown us that. And now what they're showing us with the spread of 5G, please, Mr. President, moratorium on 5G. We need to go back to 1G, okay? We need to go backwards, and we need to see that this is causing great illness throughout all Americans and everywhere this is used. And the studies that have been done, 100% of the studies that are done show that it's harmful to the ecology, to human beings. 5 or 6 different things that it causes that are illness. The beamforming technology alone. When you get a cell phone, and once we have 5G being broadcast from space, also 5G on the ground, beamforming technology. The second that you get your cell phone to your head or anywhere near your head, 10 to 1,000 times the strength of 5G will then get locked into your phone. And if you're receiving the signal from the right side of your body and you have the phone on the left side of your head, you just beamed it through your head. And this causes cancer. It causes cancer long before beamforming technology came into existence. But now, with 5G, you might as well just be microwaving your head. It's worse than microwaving your head. You're using milliwaves.
So the first two tweets are really related to what we're talking about. We are either going to have a real deal with China or no deal at all, at which point we will be charging major tariffs against Chinese product being shipped into the United States. Ultimately, I believe we will be making a deal either now or into the future in the world. I want clean air and clean water and have been making great strides in improving America's environment. But American taxpayers and American workers shouldn't pay to clean up other countries' pollution.
Now, notice, this is one of those times when you just have to say, oh, Trump, you're such a genius. Notice how he just slipped in the fact that he wants clean air, clean water, clean everything. But he's talking about China. What is he saying? He's saying he doesn't want Graco radioactive children's strollers and children's equipment that they use all around a child from China. It's radioactive, folks. How about plastic rice? How about fake gold? How about fake silver? How about fake everything? How about the most polluted country in the world? How about the country that is, in terms of the climate accord, China was going to do nothing this year, but we were going to pay more than anyone, though in fact we're cleaner than anybody else. So just think about that. He was basically saying, yes, I want a real deal with China. There's going to be no tariffs. And their childish capitalism that thinks that Chinese totalitarian communism can come in and just control a stock market that's supposed to be a free market, or that can just come in and basically kill people who make a lot of money because the Chinese central government thought it was the wrong way for them to make money. This is happening left and right. Let me just give you an example. The Uyghur people in the northwest part of China, not only have 750,000 of them been killed in the re-education camps called vocational training, but now they're putting another 1 million people into those camps, and they put another 1 million Chinese Communist Central Committee people who believe in the Central Committee. In other words, Chinese spies have been placed in 1 million Uyghur homes. And if any of those Uyghur people do anything that looks like being Islamic, they're going to be sent to their camp. Now, the rate at this point is 75% of the people die. So we have now, politically, both the United Nations, America, said to China, hey, what is going on and with your Uyghur people, and they say it's nothing.
No
big deal.
No, we're just doing a test run so that we've got all the kinks worked out, so that when we come over and roll out this program in America, those sheep will just walk right into our program.
In the past, because of the Clinton sellout of America, when it comes to trade, China wins, America loses. When it comes to the climate accord, China wins, America loses. When it comes to everything, China wins, America loses, until now. With trade, China was winning massively. So what's going to happen now? Trump doesn't really care whether we have a trade deal with China. Either they back off of their stupid tariffs, and there'd be no tariffs, there'd be a level playing ground, as he said, and a bilateral agreement can be reached. But at this point, he has technically gone, not basically stood up against the one China idea and the one belt, one road, but the one belt, one road went into the toilet. And one China doesn't work because we have been defending Taiwan. So China right now is on its knees. Soon it will be kissing the feet of Trump, because Trump is playing them, and he's doing the opposite of what Hillary did. See, China could buy Hillary and Bill. They can't buy Donald Trump.
China does not want tariffs. Quote, China officially echoed President Donald Trump's optimism over bilateral trade talks. Chinese officials have begun preparing to restart imports of U.S. soybeans and liquefied natural gas, the first sign confirming the claims of President Donald Trump and the White House that China had agreed to start immediately buying U.S. products, close quote.
Well, you see, the deal is Trump has done a bait and switch on them. You see, Kissinger, the Council on Foreign Relations, Hillary Clinton, John Breyer, and many others, Eric Schmidt, they all went to China thinking that they were going to do to China what we had done to Russia, which is make a bunch of oligarchs. And there are now oligarchs on the Chinese Central Communist Committee, okay? And it's a big deal over there because these guys are becoming filthy rich like the Russians, and then they think that they're all that. That's why President Xi is an insane person. Insane. That he can believe the nonsense that he is preaching is complete insanity. One belt, one road meant total communism for the world, Chinese communism. One China means we conquered Taiwan, a free nation. You see, so what happened was they did a bait and switch with capitalism for China. And our big people went over there and said, look, all you have to do is just enter into capitalism and play the game, and you can always control it because every single company in China has a committee in it that is the committee that goes right back to the Central Chinese Totalitarian Communist Committee. There's no such thing as a Chinese company that isn't communist. There's no such thing as a free stock market in China.
Wait a minute. That's not true in the United States either. All these companies are controlled by globalists. We've got Congress controlled by globalists. I mean, what's the difference between us and China? It's just that our media lies to us, so we think it's one thing, but it's not.
Well, the only difference, Betsy, is that we use the proper British method.
The Brits? You mean the Brits who are our enemies?
Yes.
Who tried to overthrow Donald Trump, and they're still trying to overthrow the United States government with their infiltration of Senior Executive Service and Serco? You mean those Brits?
Yes. And they're little committees that they never tell anyone who's on the committee, and everything goes back to they always win. They're the House. They always win. And then they have, like Serco, more contracts in America for data management, for airplane management, bus management, everything. Anything you can imagine going on in America is being controlled by British companies. And they have the largest contracts. And they were stealing from OPEC. They were stealing from USAID. They were stealing from every place. They have the golden share for Lockheed Martin. They have the gold. Don't get us started on the Brits. The point is that we in America use a modified British system that acts as if it's a little bit more civilized, but it's not. The Chinese are trying to catch up, so they do it very quickly, and it looks as if they are just terrible totalitarian dictators who don't care about their people and are willing to murder millions of people just as an experiment. That is true. Is that true in America? Yes. If 5G gets placed, that is murdering Many, many Americans, more than anyone can count,
Yeah,
because of the unborn.
Well, some people already have headaches and they have physical illnesses, especially when they put those smart meters on your house. And by the way, those smart meters, if you haven't seen the pictures that we have posted about the fires that were started and never really made it through the smart meters on the houses that were absolutely attacked, that was not a wildfire, it was an attack on Americans, on American soil. You need to take a look at the research we've done on smart meters and do something to mitigate the problem that's right there at your house. This is kind of like a globalist tentacles latched right on your house. They're going to track you, see how much energy you use, and if they don't like you, they'll do what they did in California and just zap your house into ashes. All of this while we were thinking that America was all that and more. No, it is time for us to close our borders. Now, I'm from the South, Thomas, and sometimes we get terrible termite and roach problems and stuff. And so what we do is we close the house. We close all the windows, the doors, and then we put a big tent on it so we make sure that nothing can come in. Then we get all of our people out, and then we turn the gas on and we kill them all. It is time to close the doors to America and kill, and I mean figuratively, all these globalist turds that are trying to take us down.
Yes, fumigating the invasive, I don't even know what to
well, you
call
got
them.
The Chinese.
Insects.
You have the Chinese, but you have the Jesuits. I mean, look what the Jesuits have done to America.
Yes, and the Vatican Bank, and look what the City of London has done.
And the Brits, and the Chinese, and George Soros. Hey, we need to close every border in America, including our financial borders, our physical borders, language, culture borders, all of it, and say, no, right now, truly it is America first.
Well, yeah, we have to weed it out. We have to get rid of, like you say, the termites or the roaches or whatever it is through a fumigation process. And when we're talking about China, everything stinks with China. Everything stinks. Here's what I say: no business with China whatsoever. Back off slowly enough so that we can develop the manufacturing here to take their place, and then we can manufacture for the world. China needs to be taken down. We are at war with China on all fronts. Now let me just tell you what's going on with Trump and China. All we need to do is wait. He's winning. All these idiots that don't understand what he's doing. He is the first person to take down China in history, and he's doing it nice and slow with the leverage point of tariffs, because right now, you see, people don't understand. We don't care about China. We don't need to care about China. China's 45% self-sufficient. We are about 89% self-sufficient, and had we not given our manufacturing away to China, we could be 100%. We need to stop doing whatever we're doing until we are 100% self-sufficient in America, period. China is not. They will falter, and they will become our vassal. Period. Now, all we have to do is wait. China's on its knees. They've already been tricked into believing that they can be capitalists and jump over all of the development that has to happen for capitalism to actually be a working system. And so they are so naive. They're being led by the nose, and the idiots in America that have banked on China because they thought they could go over there, centralize everything, and run China? Take China away from the communists? Those people are insane. Henry Kissinger is insane to recommend that China is the new force that is the supreme force on the face of the earth, and all of the nations must stay in a clash of nations. That's insanity. China doesn't have any ability whatsoever to lead the world. They are the biggest mess of a country anywhere on the globe. And so people just back off and let Trump do what he's doing. He is beating the snot out of them. And in a minute, we're going to go into what really was probably talked about around that dinner table, why Trump keeps saying all the subjects discussed.
Okay, well, let's get to that
powerful
tweet. Very strong signals being sent by China once they returned home from their long trip, including stops from Argentina. Not to sound naive or anything, but I believe President Xi meant every word of what he said at our long and hopefully historic meeting, all subjects discussed. I hope one of the subjects was that they'll just keep Hillary Clinton and Eric Schmidt over there.
Well, they were talking about trade, yes, but more so they were talking about war. How about the aggressive posturing of Russia and China? Do you think they didn't discuss that? And then why are they aggressively posturing? Because both of them have been brought to their knees economically because of sanctions and because of trade tariffs. And so what has to happen now is the nuclear card has to be taken out of the deck. There's going to be nuclear. If Trump is reelected in a second term, by the end of that 4 years, there will be a new nuclear deal, which will basically say that all nuclear weapons will simply be dismantled.
We don't need nuclear. I know folks that listen to us regularly get tired of us beating this drum. There are people that drop in that are new, and the technology that's readily available is thorium that could easily replace what is being used in our nuclear reactors right now, and it's clean energy, and there's not the side product of weaponry that can be made from it.
That's right. And they were talking about space wars, because China's already started a space war, and America's going to catch up and going to squish them, and that's not going to be so good for China. And as you say, they were talking about thorium, uranium. They were talking about new energy. They were talking about the IP theft and the fact that IP theft is going on and still going on and is at the absolute avant-garde. It is the cutting edge of the policy of China, which is to take over America through technology. Call a moratorium on it. Wait a couple years. Actually look at the technology before we incorporate it. China will falter. And if China does not continue with its advanced technology schemes economically, it will fall back, falter, and become less of a force than Japan. Mark my words. Now, what is really going on? China had to agree to, start giving us stuff, buying stuff from us. They had to. Why? Because they need us. Because they're not self-sufficient. And all they were doing before is buying it from other countries who bought it from us, who either jacked up or lowered the price, you see. And so these are the trade restrictions, the trade barriers that Trump is trying to stop. As soon as they stopped instantaneously when they started buying it directly from us. I hope people understand that. Otherwise, they were ripping us off through other countries. China was buying from other countries, Mexico, China, and Canada, other countries, at a discount because they were ripping us off too. NAFTA was ripping us off and China was taking advantage of it.
But while you're on the subject of NAFTA, can you take a moment to clear up this USMCA controversy?
I will try. When you say China, you say deceit, lies, communist totalitarianism. You say capitalism with a gun. You say extortion. And you see that in every single country that China has had any deals with in the past couple of years. Absolute extortion. One China? They force you to believe there's one China and that Taiwan is part of China when it's not. They basically are. That's insanity. And yet anyone dealing with China, if they even have the wrong word, if Taiwan is even mentioned, they don't do any more business with them. That's the insanity you get with China. Now, the United States-Mexico-Canada agreement, there's a lot of confusion about that. The Conclave is studying that right now, along with the researchers, to find out why people are saying certain things about it. So far, in my very superficial research of that particular point, I can say that I do not believe that in any way that the TPP agreement and the other international TIPP agreements and the other international agreements that made corporations more powerful than nations so that corporations could sue nations if they simply didn't buy from them in the fashion they had bought before, as an example. This is insanity. No, Trump would never sign any agreement with that. But you sign all kinds of agreements all the time saying that you are in agreement with the tenets of whatever. It does not mean that you might agree with it. It doesn't mean you're going to do it. No, Trump absolutely will never let foreign corporations have sovereignty over America in any deal. And so we need to do further research on that for you, Betsy.
Let's move to the next tweet. One of the very exciting things to come out of my meeting with President Xi of China is his promise to me to criminalize the sale of deadly fentanyl coming into the United States. It will now be considered a controlled substance. This could be a game changer on what is considered to be the worst and most dangerous, addictive, and deadly substance of them all. Last year, over 77,000 people died from fentanyl. If China cracks down on this horror drug using the death penalty for distributors and pushers, the results will be incredible.
Now, mind you, as I said, when they sat there at the dinner, they talked about a lot of things. Here's how this one went down. Hey, Xi, what's the bull crap with you creating fentanyl that one pill kills Americans? Ooh, sorry, Mr. President, we'll stop that. That's how that went. Why? Because there's no such thing as a pharmaceutical company in China that isn't run by the Chinese government. Fentanyl coming across our border, as I have been harping on for quite some time, there have been multiple seizures of fentanyl, but one of them particularly had enough fentanyl to kill every American. Because one of these pills will kill you, folks. And fentanyl is it's a street drug that people love to take because it's a very powerful opiate. Okay, it's an opiate that kills you. The 77,000 people that have directly died, that is directly from Chinese pharmaceuticals that are made to kill Americans that are brought across our southern border on purpose to kill Americans. Now, what are you going to say to a serial killer sitting across from you at dinner when you're Donald Trump? Are you going to mince words?
Well, it depends who that serial killer is. Is it Barack Obama, George Bush, Susan Rice? Who is sitting across? Because they're all murderers.
But the point is, he got to basically say, don't mess with me, don't lie to me, you make these, you need to stop it. And he did. In other words, President Xi of China, the communist dictator, admitted that he creates fentanyl and sends it to America to kill Americans. And now what's he going to do? He's going to kill the Chinese who still might have some of this that the communist government made and gave to those pushers and those drug dealers. And now he's going to, as they often do in China, most offenses in China, the punishment is death.
Okay, on the next tweet, he's tweeting out about Bush family and how they're going to be missed and all that stuff. But there is one phrase here in this tweet that I think really speaks it for me. This is not a funeral. This is a day of celebration.
You mean it in a little different way than I think.
Well, it's in there. We're supposed to be decoding. That's what I see. This is a day of celebration. I mean, folks, this man, and you can really tell the mainstream media is so corrupt when you look. I mean, I just glanced at some of the things that they're saying about George Bush and his amazing lifetime and all the good he brought into the world. Nothing about his corruption.
I feel the same way you do. I probably just am not quite expressing it as much because I would need a few hours to express the details that would point out that George Bush was responsible for 9/11. He attacked his own people. George Bush Sr. lived with King Saud after he was the president, and he ran Carlyle Group out of the palace of King Saud in Saudi Arabia, where he put a skiff so that he could still receive the daily presidential update. The first president in history who ever demanded to have the daily intelligence wrap-up, and he used it, insider trading, for Carlyle Group and became a billionaire from it. He also, from there, directed the 9/11 attacks through Dick Cheney. Dick Cheney was in control that day, who was, of course, a Vulcan.
Rumsfeld.
Oh, Donald Rumsfeld was a useful idiot in all of that. And basically, I didn't get into this the other day.
But we want you to go there.
George H.W. Bush murdered those people that day because of the Durham-Brady bonds that he had fallaciously created to use in an economic war against the USSR and Russia, against the Federation. So basically, this was another Vulcan attack. First, they attacked the USSR, broke it up. Then they attacked the satellites in Russia themselves, all from Azerbaijan. And this is now coming out in the news. I see it again. Silk Airways, Azerbaijan, the Azerbaijani Chamber of Commerce. Oh, no one even knows they exist. That has been the controlling device. But I guess because the Brzezinski died and Bush is dying, they think that old guard is dead. It is not dead. Dick Cheney's not dead. Kissinger's not dead.
No, his wife, he got his little wife, not his wife, his daughter, that globalist daughter, Liz Cheney, she's now in political office.
Oh, absolutely. And George Soros' son, Alexander, and on and on and on. These are dynasties. So what we're talking about here is when they have a presidential burial, what they're trying to bury is all of the dark secrets that were connected to that administration.
And it goes way back with him, because you have to look at JFK and George Bush's role there. You ask George H.W. Bush, where was he the day JFK was assassinated? He never had an answer for that. And then you want to look at what happened with him and Ronald Reagan. Now, one commenter said, no, Thomas, you couldn't be right. Ronald Reagan was such an incredible man. There's no way that he let George Bush run his administration.
He had Alzheimer's after the second year. And then after the assassination attack, which was, of course, a personal family friend of the Bushes who tried to kill Reagan, of course, then Reagan didn't, he had Alzheimer's so bad it was just terrible. If you go back and look at any of the records, you'll see that. And at the death of Nancy Reagan, when finally she died, because she ran the White House. Okay, when I said George Bush, I did not say George Bush ran the White House. I said George H.W. Bush ran foreign affairs. They actually passed an executive order that gave him the power to run foreign affairs for the president. That's unprecedented. Never happened in history. The reality is that domestically, Nancy Reagan was running things. And at her death, her children got up and said, well, now we can finally say, because she was a really tough woman, by the way, and I know that personally firsthand. After she died, they were able to say, okay, we can now tell the truth. Our dad was not a great president. Please don't put his face up on Mount Rushmore. He didn't know his name after the first 2 years. He didn't know us. He memorized and gave speeches, as all actors memorize their thing, and then they are con jobs. They go out and they con you. So he did a wonderful job, and Nancy Reagan ran the White House. Make no mistake about that. Domestically, foreignly, in terms of foreign policy, it was George H.W. Bush. If you want, folks, I could go get the executive order, but it's very easy to look up. All you have to do is just use Wikipedia, the most slanted left, democratic, socialist, fascist encyclopedias, and they will still tell you that. So, what was happening at that funeral? That was the burial of the dark, deep secrets.
Well, what do you get when you cross a Satan Bush with an Aleister Crowley daughter?
Well, totally. The Moonchild had these children who are all severely mentally handicapped. I mean, George Bush Sr., George W. Bush, Baby Bush, as I like to call him, couldn't open his mouth. If he was not reading off of the prompter, if he opened his mouth, it was a gaffe, and it was put into the yearly book. There was a book for every year that George W. Bush was the president, a gaffe book. Because he couldn't open his mouth without saying stupid stuff and inventing stupid words that don't exist and demonstrating that he was an idiot. How did he get elected? Subliminal control. Money, Enron money, and his daddy was CIA, and they had been, of course, now affecting our political machinery for quite ever since then.
A concerted effort, and I'm going to stop calling them the MS media. They're the BS media, because what they do is they propaganda and brainwash you so you don't even see this stuff. But now when you're awake and you see the corruption, it's just too much to take in at times.
But it does make me laugh, because you see, they were all there for their political capital, and the more lies they told, the more political capital they got. Or, I don't know, I haven't paid any attention as the funeral happened. There will not be one word that is said by Obama or Baby Bush or any of those people that will be true. Not one single word. Even the premise of a single word they're going to say about George Bush will be disgusting lies. Now, let me say this. The biggest liars are the ones who get the biggest political capital on those occasions. Now, what is really happening? What is really happening is the Republican Party is now the Trump Party, but they don't want it to be. That's why McCain didn't invite Trump and made sure Trump was not invited to his funeral. Because why? McCain was the worst of the worst, and he couldn't allow someone with any morality to come because they might say something moral. They might point out all the horrible incongruencies of John McCain, and they might point out the horrible incongruencies of Daddy Bush, but they won't, because what they're doing essentially is burying the father of the New World Order. And it's dead, folks. The Bilderbergers are dead. The Trilateralists are dead. The Council on Foreign Relations is dead. and Daddy Bush is dead. Good riddance. Take with you the New World Order, which has created the worst globalism that we are having to fight tooth and fang so that we have any freedoms left in the world. And basically, the only country left is America, folks, and we are in a pitched battle.
You know, the other thing that we need to get our eyes wide open about is this thing called the GOP, the Republican National Party. Now, that thing right now is headed up by a Romney. That's Ronna Romney. And Trump came out on a tweet saying, oh, she's wonderful. We've asked her to stay. Really? Though she has 40 election losses under her belt over this midterm, filled with corruption and election rigging, and she's all crickets. I don't see her coming out doing diddly squat. And I say she's a plant there to wait for the Nikki Haley, Mitt Romney ticket to emerge in 2020 to challenge President Trump, because that's the only pair that they think that they have. Now, here's what a lot of patriots are doing. I'm reading this. They're no longer giving their money to the Republican National Party because it is controlled by a globalist Romney. What they're doing is they're giving the money directly to the Trump campaign. So it would be a great thing that we all wake up to that, and we need to get the Romneys out of all of our business and just let him sit and stew in the Senate.
Unfit Mitt Romney is a Bush. Electing him was electing...
Well, they didn't elect him. I guarantee you, if you went in there, you will see he used his intercivic election rigging machines that he and George Soros own and that Optech software, and their vote is rigged.
I would have to assume that, yes, also. I agree with you. But basically, he is the McCain vote that is voting from beyond the grave. He is the Daddy Bush reincarnated. That's who Mitt Romney is, folks. He ran Velmet. He took the money from Velmet Bank, ran it through Bain Capital, along with the CIA, rogue CIA, working out of Azerbaijan with George H.W. Bush, George Bush Sr. There is nobody closer to the Bushes, except the Clintons, than Mitt Romney. So when Mitt Romney got elected, you elected a Bush/McCain/Warhawk/Never-Trumper/ the destruction of the Republican Party. What's going to happen is exactly as you said. The Republican Party is going to be split by a Mitt Romney primary trying to unseat Trump. The Democratic Party is being split by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders and the rest of the crazy socialists who are going to split the Democratic Party so they can't possibly win. Well, they know they can't win anyway. They've already had the numbers on every one of the 36 different candidates they've put up. None of them even get close to Trump. Most of them aren't out of single digits.
Well, the way that Romney would win over Trump in 2020 is if we don't get a hold of all this election rigging, these machines, and get to paper ballots, he'll just rig his own election.
Let's remind people of what you just said, Betsy. You just said Ronna Romney has to go.
She's a globalist Romney.
And you're right, because why? What happened in 2016 with the head of the Democratic National Committee? When she cheated in the primaries, was caught, taken to court, they said they have no obligation whatsoever, the Democratic National Committee, to in fact run an honest primary, or in fact to put forward the candidate who wins those primaries, or in fact to tell the truth about any of it, or in fact to take that money and then falsely use it, as they did, even money for Bernie, and give it to Hillary. This is all well known because of Donna Brazile and the Federal Election Commission investigations that are going on into the 2016 Democratic National Committee. So, what do you got there? Debbie Wasserman Schultz gets out. The whole Democratic National Committee rigged primaries between Hillary and Bernie. Goes to court? No big deal, because it seems as if there's a law that says that there's only one person in the Democratic National Committee or the Republican National Committee that is responsible for anything. And that's the reason Debbie Wasserman Schultz stepped down immediately. So therefore, no one could be charged. Same thing with Ronna Romney.
Well, that's funny because you've got Donna Brazile. Donna over at the Democrats, continuing the rigging and all that corruption from Debbie. And you got Ronna, just an R in place of the D for Donna, over at the Republican Party. And so we need to really drill down and see, what the Republican Party is doing.
Well, it's exactly as you said. They got unfit Mitt elected illegally. They got his relative running the Republican National Committee. Okay, that's ridiculous. That's where all the money goes. That's where the votes go. That's where the electoral college votes are controlled. That's where all of the election money comes.
She lost 40 seats.
And is not even contesting it, though we know that in Orange County, it is impossible.
She lives in Michigan. She watched Debbie Stabenow steal the election for John James. She does nothing.
She should have brought lawsuits against every one of those corrupt elections. And everyone knows they're corrupt. It's even out in the mainstream media that they're corrupt. What were they doing? What they call it in Orange County? Vote harvesting.
Ballot harvesting.
Ballot harvesting. And what they literally said was, we know these people want to vote. So we got their ballots for them. We went out to their house. And if they didn't want to vote, we knew they wanted to vote, so we went ahead and filled it in for them. They literally say this. And then they turned those in, and that's what won every county, every district in Orange County. Okay, and the corruption in California, unbelievable. The corruption in Florida, unbelievable. Yes, Romney, you and unfit Mitt, and your election rigging with Hart InterCivic, you just need to go.
And the final tweet today.
Oh, one other thing I want to say. Trump is world class. He's gracious. He went there, and literally the Bush family said that they felt so welcomed by him. In other words, he's learning to be a politician.
No. That's not why they did it. I saw some of the things they wanted everybody to behave themselves. The Bush says, let's all be nice. The reason they want everybody to be nice is because they know if anybody stands up and says anything against Donald Trump, he will hit back and hit back hard, and they can't afford to take those hits right now.
That is a very good point. I'm just talking about during the funeral, it'll be nice, and Donald will sit there and he will show them he's a politician because he will act like he likes these reptilian mass murderers. I mean, Susan Rice will probably be in the room, okay? There are mass murderers, genocidists. Obama, the Arab Spring, Hillary's going to be there. The Arab Spring, does anybody forget that they have murdered over 2 million people, those two?
And don't forget that globalist Lindsey Graham. He's beginning to switch now. Remember, during the Kavanaugh hearings, he was the big savior of the day. Well, I started listening to him the other day, and he slipped back into his globalist speak.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, he's got to represent John McCain from the grave.
Everybody's on. Okay, hopefully OPEC, and this is the OPEC, not the OPIC that we talk about a lot, will be keeping oil flows as is, not restricted. The world does not want to see or need higher oil prices.
Trump controls OPEC. Hello? Henry Kissinger started OPEC, and what did he tell OPEC? He said, you and I, Organization of Petroleum Providers, particularly Saudi Arabia, which used to be Standard Oil, you see. So you get to remember, if you go back far enough in history, both Iran and Iraq and all the oil there was manipulated by British Petroleum and Standard Oil. And so what did Kissinger say? I'm going to empower you oil producers. We're going to create OPEC. And what we're going to do is we're going to create the petrodollar. And it's going to make you so rich that I guarantee you that if you listen to me, you will create in offshore accounts as much money as all of the currency in the world. In other words, he used a carrot of capitalism to say to them that they would eventually, OPEC, control the world's currency. And in fact, they almost did. Remember when they used to gouge us every summer? Or every time there's a holiday, OPEC raises prices, and it was completely arbitrary. It was capricious. It was insanity. We let OPEC control us. Now, Trump controls OPEC. And why? Because he went there and he said to them, look, dude, you dudes, frozen methane, 2 words, frozen methane. There's about 100,000 times as much of that underneath the ocean as there ever was petroleum. I can wipe you out in a second. Don't make me. I wiped you out with fracking, shale extraction, and I can wipe you out with frozen methane. I can wipe you out with thorium. I can wipe you out by basically getting rid of nuclear, because just at the time that you want to get nuclear, I'm going to get unnuclear. And you're going to waste all your money. Go ahead, build your nuclear plants. And free energy devices, haven't even gone there yet. So OPEC, lower your prices. Remember the other day he caused them twice to lower the prices, and then the third time he told them they raised them? Now what happened? Oh, now it just so happens that an international incident happened that drew such bad light onto the Saudi Arabians with the Jamal Khashoggi assassination, which is actually a very good thing, by the way. He was a very criminal. He was involved in 9/11. He was the Minister of Truth. Adnan Khashoggi was Bush's senior partner in Barrick Gold. He was the number one arms dealer that Bush Sr. did all of his arms dealing with.
That was just a CIA attempt to get us into a war again.
That's exactly it, and basically to put the Saudi Arabians in check. Do you think for 1 second that Jamal Khashoggi was stupid enough, after attacking the entire Salman family, and particularly Mohammed bin Salman, the crown prince, after ruthlessly attacking him from the Washington Post in America, from his perch in America, that then he was invited to come to Istanbul to fill out some paperwork at the embassy? That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. That he went there just shows that the Washington Post and these the beliefs in America of the propagandists, that they really do rule the world. Well, that was a rude awakening to the fact that in the East, the Washington Post doesn't mean anything, and it doesn't matter that you're call yourself a news agent when in fact you're a propagandist, because when it comes down to it, your crimes against the Saudi Arabians and against the Americans, basically, that was what you deserved. I'm sorry, Jamal Khashoggi. And by the way, the rest of the Khashoggi family, you better be watching out also, because Adnan Khashoggi was one of the worst people